Hello, my name is Tim or Mr. Nendick. I'm a high school teacher at Rockhurst in Kansas City, Missouri, and also a first robotics coach with Team 5809, the Jesubots. I was recently contacted because you got a new 3D printer and asked if I could help you learn a little bit of Tinkercad. A little bit of background about me first, and then we'll get right into the Tinkercad. So I'm a robotics coach. So what we do is we build these big robots, and we is my students. You can see a few of them here. And this is our robot this year. It's big. It's about 130 pounds, and we have lots of different parts that fit together. And this is entirely student-built and student designed. Nothing in this thing here was touched by an adult at any point. These are high school students built this, had to figure out where everything went and how it worked together. And what we do, this is one of our games here, is we build these robots and program them. So ours is in the far corner here. And we're moving around milk crates this year. And there's our robot, and you can see it can place these cubes on this big teeter-totter, right? And that's all being done by computer programming right now. No remote controls or anything. Now, we're driving it around right now. And the game this year is basically 6 different teams working together, blue versus red. And we're going to try to figure out who can be better at controlling parts of the field. So you can see here, our strategy this game is to win the middle scale. And right now, we're better at it than the other team. We've got 2 to their 1, and we're about to have 3 to their 1. And this is the back and forth. And the question is, how do you possibly design such a complicated system? And, if we walk and let time kind of go along a little bit, you can see lots of robots here stacking these cubes all over the field. Well, the design starts off with CAD. CAD is computer-aided design or computer-aided drawing. They're slightly different. CAD looks something like this. This is the program we use. It's called SolidWorks. And Tinkercad is basically a version of this as a teaching tool. This is a real tool. This is what engineers use. If you go to Boeing, if you go to SpaceX, this is a program they're invariably using. And it's what my students use to design their robots. And it's really, really powerful. But it's also designed for engineers. I mean, it's designed for people making parts that look like, well, this. Which is amazing if you're an engineer, but if you're a middle schooler, this is really scary. If you're a high schooler, this is really scary. If you're teaching this is really scary. This is a job to learn this program. But it beats the alternative. This is a real drawing from the Apollo program. You can see how you'd have to imagine how all the parts fit together and sketch it and see this part in your head. It would be crazy difficult. Whereas here, I can kind of make sure, okay, this chain is going to fit because it fit in the drawing. When I send this to a CNC mill, it's going to be cut out exactly like I know it is. When I go to 3D print this part, it's going to fit because I know it fits in the model. So this lets me build a real model in 3 dimensions, and it takes away the limitation of like drawing with pens and paper, which is really good for drawing things up and down and left and right, but I can't like draw up above the page or down below the page. With CAD I can. And so I want to learn a little bit of CAD, and what I want to do is I want to, in a couple lessons, walk you through making a good first 3D model for printing, which is a keychain, and it will go through most of the skills. So we're going to use Tinkercad. And once you're logged into Tinkercad, you'll see an interface that looks something like this. Tinkercad is made by the exact same people who make this software. It's identical. It's Autodesk. And it's really quite powerful. I still use Tinkercad in robotics. Here's something that I made earlier this year and we used on our robot. It's really, really cool. This isn't just a toy, and I want to be clear about this. This really does work. Before we get into the design phase here, and we'll use kind of this create new design in your case, and I'm going to open up something I just imported. I have found that when I'm watching people CAD for the first time, I get really frustrated because they're moving all around the screen and I don't know how they're getting the screen to look like it. So I want to spend like 3 or 4 minutes talking a little bit about just moving around your view and nothing else. So I put a part here in the middle. It's part of a shifter we built this year. Whatever, it's a part. I just want to look at this part from different dimensions. So I've loaded in and there's like a ground plane here and my part's floating in. And I've got some stuff here to the side. I could zoom in, zoom out, fit everything in view. I could use those buttons, although honestly, I probably haven't clicked them in my life until now. They're there though, so we can use them. How I use it is I'm going to go and scroll. So I'm using a trackpad, so I'm going to use 2 fingers, but like maybe your middle mouse wheel, however you would scroll. And I can scroll in and out to zoom. So that's useful. So go ahead and try it with your copy of Tinkercad. If you need to pause me and open up Tinkercad, do. And we're just going to scroll it so that work plane's changing. Okay, so we see how we can zoom in and out fast. Okay, if I hold down the left button and drag, I'm going to get a selection window. That doesn't do me a lot besides highlighting things, right? But if I hold down the right mouse and I drag, I get a freely rotating view, which is nice. For someone learning CAD, this freely rotating view is really, really dangerous. And I'll explain why. Let's say I put 2 things here. Okay, that looks like it's on top, right? I mean, look at that, right on top of that, right? If I rotate, what? No, right? For this to be on top is going to take some different aiming, right? I mean, I put that thing way out there. So you have to be careful with your 3-dimensional views, and I'll help with that. But I can right-click and I can orbit it. Okay, so we're going to come back out. So we've learned how to zoom in and out by scrolling. We've learned how to kind of freely rotate with the right-click. 9 times out of 10, that's going to do what you need it to do. Now, I sometimes will have a part off to the edge like that, right? If I hold down the Shift button and I right-click and drag, Shift plus right-click drag, I can actually move the whole work plane while keeping my orientation. So I can zoom back in and say, okay, I'm looking straight down on this part now. And I can move it until I have the view I want, which is useful. Zoom out, I can just hold right-click without Shift and orbit, shift that view using Shift. And you can see basically with this combination of right-click drag, of scroll, and Shift right-click drag, I can get where I want it. Now that's how I personally do it. I would say for a student learning this, it's better to use this box over here. Here's my top view. Click on the arrows. Here's a left view, a front view, a right view, a bottom view. As you can see, I'm getting all of the possible looks, and I'm kind of clicking it to a firm spot. So now that I know how to move around the work plane, I can actually start the design process. Now, if this was a little fast, pause it, rewind it, move it around. That's a beautiful part of a video. But hopefully at this point you understand how to move the screen.